I'm gonna like assume and hope that this is a 25 because if it's not, then I'm definitely not opening mine. Welcome to Whiskey and SV. I'm your host Sam, and tonight we're going to be drinking some Edradour whiskey. So, unless if you're a super nerd about whiskey, you probably never heard of the name Edradour, and that's fine because Edradour is one of the smallest producers of whiskey out of Scotland. They are from the Highland region, I believe, as it says on the bottle here, and I guess they are known for their heavily sherried whiskies. For me, the signature of Edradour is this heavily mixed sherry that's slightly sour, and it has a savory type or flavor to it. So I really like the profile. I think it's great. Edradour does have a sister brand, or a peated version that is marketed under the name Balechen. I think they write that as Balechin, but they read it Balechen. And I have to say, I'm not a huge fan of the Balechens that I've tried so far. I haven't tried too many. I've tried a 19-year. I've tried I guess a 12-year single cask. But yeah, I haven't found any that I really loved. But of the Edradours that I've tried, I've pretty much liked every single one. And some of them are absolute bangers. So the first Edradour that I actually bought was quite a few years ago. It was I think maybe 4 years ago. It's this one is a 2010, yeah. So it's like the Edradour 12-year cask strength. I bought this from the UK. I think at the time I paid around $120 delivered to my door. They might be slightly more expensive or slightly. Anyways, you can see the color on this thing is crazy. It's super dark, and I love this whiskey. The second one that I tried was one of these straight from the cask ones. I think these used to come in wooden boxes, and they're only 500 milliliters, which is kind of annoying because already all the UK ones are 700 milliliters, and this is even less at 500 milliliters. This is also from the cask, like it's a 10-year expression, 58.6%. You can see again, super dark and very flavorful. I have decided to throw in a independent bottle one. So this is a Signatory unchill filtered collection, and these come up quite often. I believe. By the way, this one was around $80, and I think these come up again every once in a while at around like $80 to $90. This one is a distilled on 11th of May 2011, bottled on 2nd of June 2021, bottle number 787 in case anyone cares. So the this particular one I think has a little bit of peat in it. These other ones do not have any peat in them. I don't know, for some reason the Signatory has some slight amount of peat, which gives it an interesting barbecued meat flavor. Whenever I experience any amount of peat, especially moderate amount of peat um, with sherry, that barbecue note is very prominent for me. And last but not least is this Edradour 25-year. So this one was an expensive purchase. It's about 500 and something dollars delivered to my door. But the reason why I got it was because our good friend Donnie, and if you know anything about Donnie, and there's no reason why you should, but I keep talking about Donnie because he's a bit of a legend. He tries some of the best whiskeys out there. He always like opens them and drinks them straight away. And I think Donnie's palate and mine are very close because we agree on a lot of things. So, I have a lot of whiskey friends here, and now by this time, we've spent a lot of time kind of drinking and talking about stuff. So we sort of know about each other's palates, but our preferences and our palates don't always match up. But even though I've never met Donnie, and we just, basically just talk online and stuff, and we send each other samples, I think like I trust his palate quite a bit because a lot of times when he says stuff and our preferences really match up. Anyways, being a generous guy, Donnie gave me this sample of the Edradour 25, and you can see I've had a little bit of it already. Just because I was super curious when I got it, I just wanted to see what it tastes like. But yeah, the goal tonight is to try this, blind it with the other Edradours that I have open here and see where it stacks up and whether it's worth opening this and maybe backing it up. All right, cool. So I'm gonna pour these. So it's gonna fast forward this piece. All right, so we're gonna put number 1 on the 12-year cask strength. All right, so we're ready to go. Let's take these off, and as usual, we will nose them first, give you some notes, taste them, give some notes. Then I'll give my preferences and my guesses, and then we'll go from there. All right, number 1. So there's that signature Edradour sweet and sour notes mixed with, it's like sort of like sour plums plus cherry notes, and the sherry notes come across as like prunes, obviously, and some sweet raisin notes as well. It's very, very inviting. I really like this type of profile. Okay, let's go to the second one. This one is slightly more muted, and there is more sherry, nutty sherry notes in there. And there's a little bit of a sulfur note that you get on some sherried whiskeys. Yeah, interestingly, it comes across as much less ABV than this one. Gone to the third one. This one's more fresh and fruity compared to both of those last ones. There's absolutely no sulfur here. Yeah, it's almost kind of like a Buffalo Trace Mash Bill 1 type of like freshness. Like a bubblegum sort of note, which is kind of weird on a sherried whiskey. Okay, last but not least, very similar to the third one, I think. Again, like comes across as proofy for sure. There's that sour plum and um, raisin mix note, right? So the sweet and the sour type note, and yeah, some woodiness. So I think these two were so far my favorite noses. I'm just gonna go back one more time. Yeah, this one definitely has a little bit of a sulfur note to it, which is interesting. It's not bad, but it definitely like sticks out different than the other one. So if I was to guess right now, given that it comes across as less ABV and it has that distinct sort of sulfur sherry note, I think it's probably the Signatory. This honestly comes across as less complex than these two, but similar. All right, so I'm going to go on to taste them now. Interesting. That has peat on the palate for sure. I didn't get any peat on the nose, but on the palate, it comes with quite a lot of intensity. The fruity notes, like the red fruits concentrates, are really mouth coating, and it lasts a long time. And on the mid palate, I started getting a peaty sort of earthy note. One more quick swig. Yeah, it's nice. It does feel a little bit young. It does feel like it has slight amount of metallic notes in there. Enjoyable, but definitely has a little bit of a harshness to it for sure. Okay, let's go to this one. Yeah, this one is definitely different than the other three for sure. Ooh, yeah, even on the palate, it's completely different. It's very different profile. It's actually not. It doesn't remind me of an Edradour because it has a very distinct barbecue meat sort of flavor that is very savory. It doesn't have the same um, sour notes that the other ones have that I enjoy. It's definitely much more towards barbecued meat and earthy notes. Very enjoyable. I mean, for 80 bucks, if this is indeed the Signatory, I think that's great. All right, moving on to the next. Yeah, very strange. On the nose, it reminds me of a Buffalo Trace Mash Bill 1. Okay, let's go for it. Mm, that's nice and creamy. Doesn't have any of the sharp edges of that first one. Those sherry notes, basically they're like sort of concentrated prunes and raisins. They linger on and on. Good amount of oak in there as well. That's like is well integrated. It's very nice. I really like this. It's got some nutty notes in there as well. Yeah, everything about this feels more refined than this one. There's a good amount of spices on it as well, so it like kind of makes your mouth water. But then like the oak in there is also sort of tart, and that mixture of tartness and the spices is great. Okay, last but not least, very similar to that one. Oh, but the palate for sure is not as complex, and there's again some youthfulness to it. Yeah, it's nice, but it's more kind of like the first one. So I think so far, by far, my favorite has been this one. For uniqueness, I guess, and being off profile from Edradour, this one is really a banger. Between these two, I should make a decision which one I like more. I'm gonna like assume and hope that this is a 25 because if it's not, then I'm definitely not opening mine. This one in kind of nose gets very close to this. All right, I think my palate needs a break. But yeah, there's definitely some youthfulness to it, which comes across as basically some bitter ethanol notes, comparatively. Um, it's still very enjoyable. Just yeah, there is definitely some compared to that, some youthfulness in there for sure. I have to say I probably prefer this one. It has more spicy notes to it and more oaky notes, but overall, um, this has like a little bit of a bitter thing to it that I don't enjoy too much. So nose better on this, but palate I think better on this. Okay. One final time we'll go for this to see. Yeah, this just comes across as way more refined. It has all the same intensity, all the same spices, but everything is just much more smoother and more refined. Okay, so final guesses and final scores, I guess. This is really an exceptional whiskey. I hope it's a 25-year. I think this has a better nose than this, but this tastes better on the palate, I think. So I would say this is probably number 2. I'm hoping that this is the 12-year, which would make this the this one, the straight from the barrel, straight from the cask. And last but not least, this one. But I think actually I prefer this as a second because it's very unique and price wise is really amazing. So I'm hoping that this is a signatory. All right, so let's do the reveals. So I'm gonna do the one that I'm pretty sure, and that's the signatory. The signatory has got to be this one, so it's got to be number 4. And yes, this is number 4. So I got the signatory right, no problem. I am really, really hoping that I'm right about this one. So this has to be number 2. And this is number 3. Oh my god. Holy moly, this is number 3? What is this then? This is number 1, which would make the 25-year this one, which is number 2. Oh my god, that's crazy. Um Wow. Let me try this again. Hmm. Yeah, that's super enjoyable. This is less enjoyable for sure. And this one has a bitterness that I really don't think I enjoy too much. That was a shocking result for me. I am honestly, this is a must buy for me. Like I'm probably gonna try to get more of these. Of course, I'm not gonna be able to get this particular batch, but they come out every year and they're amazing. And for the price, which is like 80 to 90 bucks, it's a must buy. Um, it seems like I'm actually more a fan of this than the 12-year. This 12-year is super, super dark, but there's some bitterness to it that makes it a bit, off profile for me. And yeah, it turns out that I prefer the 10-year the most. So let me just make sure again. This was number 3. Yes. So yeah, the 10-year straight from the cask 500 milliliter is the winner of the night, and it is the one that fortunately I do have a backup of, but unfortunately probably I won't be get a second backup of because they change all the time. All right, well, I guess this should go on a trade list. I'm reluctant because it is batch one of a distillery that I love, so I think it's probably going to appreciate over time. So I'm not in a rush to get rid of it, but if I do find a trade where it comes up against something that I really enjoy, like an RB27 batch one or something like that, I'm not going to say no. So yeah, there you have it, folks. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope to see you next time. Cheers. Bye.